Thank you for joining me in what is now the 8th short devotional in the series on the Father Heart of God. As I continue this series, I can't ignore the current reality in the world. A few days ago, Cecilia and I returned from South Africa, where we had to cut our visit short by 2 weeks because the country was locking down. Here in the UK, in London, the social distancing is being enforced by the closure of pubs and restaurants and shops. The schools have all closed. People are being encouraged to self-isolate. So in the light of the coronavirus and the resultant COVID-19 infection that it causes, and the resultant fear and panic and irrationality that's gripping the world, I'd like to dedicate this devotion to the words that Jesus spoke in Matthew 11 verse 28, where he says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Or, "Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." Now, it's important to see the context of that verse. In the preceding verse, verse 27, Jesus points to the Father and he says the following: "No one knows the Son except the Father, and no one knows the Father except the Son, and those to whom the Son chooses to reveal him." When Jesus asked his disciples who they thought he was, Peter had an aha moment. He had a light bulb moment, and he said, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." Now, he received that by revelation from the Father. The Father revealed the Son to Peter as the Christ, the Son of the living God. Now, similarly, we only get to know the Father by revelation of the Son. There's no preacher that can reveal God the Father to you. Jesus is the one that reveals the Father to us. That's why Jesus said in John 14, "I am the way to the Father. No one knows the Father except through me. If you've seen me, you've seen the Father." And in John 17, where he prayed, "Father, I've made you known to them and will continue to make you known," made your name known to them. Jesus came to make God the Father known to us. Matthew 11 verse 27 in the contemporary English version: "The only one who truly knows the Father is the Son, but the Son wants to tell others about the Father so that they can know him too." The Passion Translation: "And no one fully and intimately knows the Father except the Son, but the Son is able to unveil the Father to anyone he chooses." Jesus came to reveal the Father to us. He wants us to know the Father. And then he goes on to say in Matthew 11 verse 28, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." The yoke of Jesus and his burden was to do the will of the Father, to please the Father, to live in such a way that was pleasing to God. Now, in these unprecedented times of uncertainty, that's the yoke we take upon ourselves, to do the will of the Father and to live in such a way that's pleasing to the Father, with the same gentleness and humble heart of Jesus. That's when we find peace for our souls, a place of rest in the bosom of the Father, in spite of the uncertainty and turmoil and manic panic all around us. When Jesus said, "Come to me, all you that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest," by implication, he's saying, come to the Father and find your place of peace and rest. And then he says, "Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, and then you will find rest for your souls." As we take his yoke, the same yoke, to be pleasing to Father, that's when we find rest for our souls. And then he concludes by saying, "For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." If you're carrying a yoke right now that's not easy, and a burden that's not light, but it's heavy, and it's breaking your back, it's chafing your neck, it's causing you to be discouraged and despair, that's not the yoke of Jesus. He came to break the yoke and set the captives free. This is not a time for fear, but for faith. Not a time for panic, but to enjoy the peace of God. My prayer is that God would set us free from fear and anxiety, and that we'd find that place in the heart of God during this time. Let's respond to the invitation by Jesus and by implication the Father. Come to me and I will give you rest.